Hi, and welcome back to another music theory lesson. This is going to be your first lesson on melody, and like the first lesson on harmony, it's mostly going to just cover some general tips. So first, most of the time, if you're writing something that's meant to be kind of evocative of common practice period, you're going to be drawing from one of what I call the four basic scales. And you should know those scales and their modes. Now, those four basic scales are the natural major scale, the harmonic minor scale, the melodic minor scale, and the harmonic major scale. Now, at this point, even if you do know all of the beginner stuff, you might be asking two questions. One, what about the natural minor scale? And two, what is the harmonic major scale exactly? And to answer that first question, like I said, you should learn all of the modes, and the natural minor scale is the sixth mode of the major scale. Or the Aeolian mode. So if you know all the modes of the major scale, you will learn the natural minor scale. Now, second, the harmonic major scale is the major scale with a flat sixth scale degree. So if you're in the key of C harmonic major, C, D, E, F, G, A flat, B, C, as opposed to A, B, C. Not only is your melody generally going to take from one of those four scales, but it's usually going to use chord tones mostly. So make sure you know your arpeggios, especially your triad arpeggios, but it will be also really good, especially later on, to know your seventh chord arpeggios. The general rule of thumb is one non-chord tone per chord. This by no means is always the case, and we'll go over how non-chord tones get used, including how you can end up with two non-chord tones in a row. But that should kind of be your default setting, if you will, in order to create a tonal melody. Now, your melody should also be a combination of leaps and steps. You don't want it to be entirely just scalar motion. By the same token, you don't want your melody to move only in thirds or, only in fourths. You want to kind of have it change a little bit. Now, one of the things that helps with this is one of the basic rules of thumb for classical style music is if you leap by a fourth or more, generally you'll follow it up by a step in the opposite direction. So if you go up a sixth, you go down a step. If you go down a sixth, you go up a step. And that kind of gives a almost back and forth motion that slowly gets higher or lower. Now this brings us to the last point, which is contour. One of the major focuses of classical music is you start somewhere, you go somewhere else, and you come back to where you started. And the way that works with contour is by the climax of the piece. You might have started the piece, say, at middle C, and by the climax you might be 2 octaves up, or maybe 2 octaves down. It doesn't really matter, but you're farther away from where you started. And as the piece comes back to its end, you're bringing the melody either back down or back up, depending on which way you went. And you don't want to just go straight there and straight back. Part of how this ties into the idea of you leap and then step, or step, leap, step, and do all that, is you kind of want it to have almost a wave type motion where it just doesn't go straight there, straight back. It meanders a little bit and takes its time, but does so with direction. It has purpose. And those are my basic tips for how to make a melody. We'll go over things in a lot more detail very soon. Some of these concepts will be covered in the beginner lessons. Others of these concepts, like all the different types of non-chord tones, will be covered in these lessons. But in any case, that's all I got to say about that. So have a nice day and come back soon.